The cost is incredible. The cost of waiting is incredible. Waiting is just not an option. Every time you wait, it's like throwing dollars out the window. And I totally agree. Speed is the key to everything, particularly in this space. The faster we can get it up, the faster people can live in it.
It seems like governments are somewhat hesitant to bring in new technology. Very often it means possibly budget constraints, waiting for timing, getting additional buy-in. But I think it can be implemented on a slower basis where they could test different features, different technologies, etc.
Absolutely. And I actually believe that the cost of failure is less than the cost of doing nothing.
Certainly making sure the plans are submitted completely is very important, but understanding the front-to-back workflow. And whenever there's a manual handoff, whether it's between the permitting system and the plan review system, that develops friction. When you have more departments that are working on the plans, if there's not technology that allows them to collaborate together, that also causes more friction. So understanding the process and then trying to use technology to smooth that out can be avoided. Human judgment should always be central. It should be making the final decisions. We think of AI as co-pilot, as helping the reviewer more with those repetitive tasks. A lot of code review is measuring, identifying objects, distances. That repetitive stuff can all be done with AI. So at the final judgment call, it is certainly the reviewer. Again, this is not replacement. This is only supplemental to them.
Yeah, it speeds their process, but at the end of the day, there's still a responsibility. I'd recommend you spend a little time and ask yourself, what is it costing me to do nothing? And I think you'll be shocked. Then ask yourself, what does it cost for me to get into a technology to eliminate the do nothing factor? And I think you'll notice that the ROI is spectacular.
Sure. One thing I'd add also is make sure you get buy-in from the plan reviewers. They're the ones that are ultimately going to be using this technology. They need to be able to trust it, to understand it, and to be able to use it to its fullest. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Hughes. I'm the president of CodeComply. CodeComply is an AI-based plan review system. And I'm joined here with Gary Griffiths from CivicPlus. And we're meeting here in beautiful Brooklyn, New York. Where number one, we're announcing our partnership, which was actually formally announced last week. And number two, we're really here to just talk about modernizing of municipalities and building departments. There's a lot of different software out there that addresses different issues, but one that seems to be very topical these days is the permitting. That's what our partnership is going to be focusing on. It's trying to streamline the permitting process. So Gary, just a question for you.
All right.
How did you get into?
Took the train. Took Amtrak. Me and Amtrak go way back. We enjoy our time together. I love it. Gets me everywhere I go. Most of the time on time. I can't complain. I'm always amazed when I come back to the city how much it's changed and not changed at the same time.
Is it true?
It gets bigger, but it gets smaller. It's just a crazy place.
Amazing view also. So how did you end up at CivicPlus? Maybe a little of your background?
So I've been in the design, construction, and asset management space my whole career, primarily almost exclusively in public sector and government. Started out years and years ago doing TV inspections for a county on sewer pipes and moved into design, construction, and all that kind of stuff related to technology. Just weaving my way through the business, ended up with CivicPlus when I decided to go into the operations and infrastructure side of government, which is asset management, permitting, plan review, utility billing, all the things on the back office versus the customer-facing side of things.
Sure.
Came on board to try to help put that together, and this is all part of that process.
That's great. That's great. What's interesting, our partnership that we'll speak a little bit more about has to do with permitting and try to alleviate some of the pressure on permitting. Everyone knows the cities and municipalities are having more and more demand, and to try and resolve that issue and to try and streamline it. So that's one of the things our companies are focusing on. What are some of the things you're hearing out there with jurisdictions as they think about permitting?
It is true. It's a bottleneck in the process. And we're here in New York, the land of infrastructure, and our group builds infrastructure solutions to try to make sure we can manage, maintain, and construct these things. You can't manage and maintain an infrastructure item it's not created yet. So part of this whole process, and probably the biggest challenge in a lot of cases, certainly for governments, is how do we make sure everything that's being built is compliant with our code, is safe, is livable, and sustainable. So permitting for us is a huge piece of this process. And the partnership with CodeComply on the electronic plan review is a perfect fit and falls right into our overall long-term strategy and is a huge process improvement and productivity improvement across the entire permitting landscape.
Sure. You bring up a good point as far as productivity is concerned. Anyone that knows permitting realizes there's just a lot of repetitive functions within that flow. A lot of that can be done with AI. AI doesn't, as you know, replace anybody. It supplements. It should be seen as a co-pilot that the reviewer can rely on. But ultimately, the final decisions, all the outliers, are still the responsibility of the reviewer.
Oh, for sure. And this is going to improve their processes, make their lives better. On the topic of people who do this work, the great news around this is um, as people come into the position and come into government, they're no longer expecting to have tools from the old days. They're expecting to have new tools. These are folks who have been raised on video games, have been raised on technology,
Mhm.
and they walk into a permitting office and they realize they're doing everything with a marker. They're not going to want that job. You're not going to be able to retain those people. They're going to get a job at an engineering firm or a design construction firm. But you bring them in and they've got new technology that allows them to do AI and really bring technology as part of their process. They're going to embrace those positions and they will take those positions. And getting people into government roles can sometimes be a challenge
Sure.
in this role, but that really helps them jump into it and just kind of push forward.
That's a great point. Just the tools that they're presented with now are very manual. They're legacy systems. They've been out there for years and years before a lot of this technology, certainly before AI. And those are the only tools very often that they're faced with. And as you said, it is certainly not a sexy role by any means.
For sure.
But bringing in AI and these new technologies certainly makes it a lot more rewarding for these reviewers.
And the data's all there. The code is there. The design plans are there. All the information is there. All it just takes is a skilled operator to make AI make it process faster.
Sure. Yep. And it seems like governments are somewhat hesitant to bring in new technology. Very often, it means possibly budget constraints, waiting for timing, getting additional buy-in. But I think it can be implemented on a slower basis, where they can test different features, different technologies, etc.
Absolutely. And I actually believe that the cost of failure is less than the cost of doing nothing. If you don't move forward, you're never going to get anywhere.
Sure.
So you've got to jump in and you've got to push it as hard as you can because doing nothing accomplishes nothing.
Yep. It also seems like very often a manual process in a municipality may be okay for a while, but then you see some of these natural disasters and you see some of these really surge in permitting, and that's really when it exposes some of these old legacy systems, some of the manual processes, etc.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of stuff, politics around a lot of that for sure. There's permitting processes around that. When disasters happen, codes can change, insurance requirements can change. Um, but the plan review piece is the one piece that shouldn't hold it up, right? If you have to change your municipal code for whatever reason, there's going to be negotiations around that. But what's not going to be negotiated is how fast can you take a plan and turn it into a approved plan, regardless of what the code is. This is where the AI plan review really kind of takes its place.
Sure, certainly agree. As I mentioned earlier, last week we announced a partnership between CodeComply and CivicPlus. Gary, from our perspective, as I've said many times, we're very excited for this partnership. Permitting, workflow, and plan review are different systems. Very often, they're not integrated at all. And for us to find a partner who really understand the workflow, the need for integration, who had your breadth of client base with over 13,000 clients, with your focus on modernizing, excuse me, governments, it's just a real honor and pleasure to be partnering with you. I really think that there's a lot that we can help municipalities to begin to modernize and to start reducing their permitting time.
Yeah, and we're excited about it too. This is an important part of our portfolio. Our strategy really is to take these 13,000 municipal customers in just the United States alone and really move them forward with technologies that can help them become more productive and more responsive to their citizens, which is an important part we haven't talked about. Responsiveness to your citizens is one of the core missions of government, might be the core mission of government, right? And that doesn't just include the developers to make sure the buildings get built in time. That includes the potential homeowners, the people who want to buy their first home, the people who need a place to live, the businesses that need a place to start their startup or put their coffee shop. Those are all aspects of what government has to take into effect as they begin to become more productive for their citizenry. And this piece of technology combined with AI and where we're going across a platform, really is going to improve the process and the time to citizen happiness.
Sure. And not to get too deep, but what's important with an integration and why it's so important is the plan reviewer has a responsibility to go through the plans, make sure they're compliant. But very often they may have comments, they may have questions, they may need clarity from the applicant. When there's two standalone systems, that's prohibitive. With a full integration, it allows that process to occur that much smoother. Very often, the reviewer has these questions and is just sitting waiting for a response. They have to go either through email or through calling. So it can save over 70% of a reviewer's time if they could work and collaborate more efficiently with the applicant.
And the integration, the system is more important based upon that as well, because that's where the calls come to. The call doesn't go to the plan reviewer. The call comes to the permitting office. And if the permitting office can't tell where the plans are in the review process, it's a delay and it's a frustration. So our goal here is to reduce the friction between the regulatory agencies and the permitting agencies and the developers and the construction professionals.
Sure. And you did mention, obviously, it's the applicant that's very important. And
Yep.
the more visibility they get into the process, the more they can understand, the more they could adjust their workflow. So that's extremely important as well.
And the sooner they get the feedback, right? If something has to be changed in their plans, let's get that feedback in their hands as quickly as possible, because we want the economic improvement, and we want the developers to be successful, and we want these projects to be built more quickly. From the developer side, from the citizen side, the cost is incredible. The cost of waiting is incredible. Waiting is just not an option. Every time you wait, it's like throwing dollars out the window. So we've got to get this thing processed quickly.
Sure. And I have to end by just saying it's been a pleasure working with your team, from your marketing staff to your development team to your salespeople, to your BDRs. It's been an incredible experience so
Thank you.
far.
It's been fun. I can't wait. Can't wait to grow more.
We have some questions.
Yeah, what is putting the most pressure on jurisdictions right now when it comes to permitting and land review? If you could just pick one thing.
Sure. I would say it's the visibility. It's in the paper. There are pressures coming. As we said earlier, if someone has a problem, it goes to the mayor. He then tries to do as much as he can to try and expedite it. But it comes to the plan reviews. It's ultimately their responsibility, and we need to give them tools to allow them to do their jobs better.
And I totally agree. Speed is the key to everything, particularly in this space. The faster we can get it up, the faster people can live in it.
What do people outside building departments misunderstand the most about why permitting slows down?
I think it's probably the complexity of it. If you look at a municipal code, it's thousands and thousands of individual lines that not everyone at the permitting agency or the city completely understands. Each department will understand it. Plus the amount of risk and responsibility that the permitting department, the city, the county takes when that construction is happening. They're responsible ultimately for the safety of the people who are going to move into that building, for the longevity of that building, the sustainability of that building, and so are those codes. So I think a lot of people don't truly comprehend the amount of complexity that there is in this process. When you go to plan review, the complexity gets even crazier, because now you got multiple departments who own parts of the code. And now it kind of distributes that complexity out. We've got to bring all that stuff together so that everyone can kind of see that it's happening quickly.
Sure. And I agree with you. One thing I would add, though, is that some of the delay is actually the applicants as well. Very often they submit incomplete plans, and then that requires the plan review to open them up and realize there are things that are missing. That can certainly be caught earlier on in the process, which could be helpful for the whole workflow.
Yep, absolutely.
So would you say that's the most avoidable friction, or something else in the permitting and land review process today?
Certainly, making sure the plans are submitted completely is very important. But understanding the front to back workflow, and whenever there's a manual handoff, whether it's between the permitting system and the plan review system, that develops friction. When you have more departments that are working on the plans, if there's not technology that allows them to collaborate together, that also causes more friction. So understanding the process and then trying to use technology to smooth that out can be avoided.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Where can AI create real value now, and where should human judgment stay central?
Sure. Human judgment, if I'm understanding the question, should always be central. It should be making the final decisions. We think of AI as a co-pilot, as helping the reviewer more with those repetitive tasks. A lot of code review is measuring, identifying objects, distances. That repetitive stuff can all be done with AI. So, but at the final judgment call, it is certainly the reviewer. Again, this is not replacement. This is only supplemental to them.
Yeah, it speeds their process, but at the end of the day, there's still a responsibility.
How are resilience and insurance pressures starting to change the permitting conversation, would you say?
Um, if you don't get uh, proper insurance, it can actually hurt the ability to fund a project. So getting the insurance companies on board is extremely important. They are also having more of an impact on the local codes. As far as if you think of the fire disaster in LA, a lot of the insurance companies are now coming back and requiring fire resistant materials. So they are certainly having an impact on the newer codes. It happened also with Sandy in 2012. Insurance companies came along and said, we want to change the code on those new homes that are being built along the coasts. So they certainly have an impact on those codes.
So it sounds like major rebuild events like the LA fires are revealing weaknesses in the current permitting system. Um, Anything additionally that they're revealing?
Yeah, that's a great point. A lot of these building departments in municipalities can't handle the surge that these natural disasters cause. Um, and a lot of the manual workflow are exposed. And at that point, these municipalities suddenly realize that a lot of the manual work can be done with technology, and they should start implementing it sooner than later.
And one other thing that's causing, outside of just the construction surge based by natural disasters, is just the surge of people moving, right? So we deal with agencies from the biggest in the country to the smallest in the country. There are large places like New York that are growing at 1 or 2%, right? But there's small communities in Texas and Tennessee that are growing at 40 and 50%. And they just can't keep up with that volume of permit requests on a spreadsheet. Those are the folks, and they're usually have a lower funding level, but they have a greater need. So they've got to find a way to turn those permits around, get those developments built. And we're not talking about skyscrapers at this point. We're talking about 25 homes next to a lake or whatever. Those have to be built quickly. The surge of humans is, and the movement of humans in the United States right now is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, really is. Um, Speaking of in terms of the partnership, why is this integration more useful for jurisdiction, but having the separate standalone tools?
The speed is important, and once again, the communication is important. If you have separate systems, you've got separate communication methods, and a call could come into the permitting office, and he might not know where it is in the process. A developer could call the fire department, and he goes, "Well, I did my reviews. I don't know where it is." It could just sit out there. You need to know which department has these kinds of things. I worked once with an agency, a water agency in Maryland, and they had a 2-year permitting process just to make sure that the sewer system and the water system could support the infrastructure, right? So developers got frustrated. That's 2 years. And what was happening is developers would build outside of their jurisdiction, which means that particular part of Maryland wasn't getting any growth because the holdup on the permits. Because developers, you got to build. You can't wait.
Sure. I also believe it's easier for the municipalities um, to purchase a plan review that automatically integrates with a plan review. This way, they don't have to buy two different systems. They don't have to figure out the integration. They don't have the manual workflow. So having a seamless integration makes it much easier for the municipality.
Makes a lot of sense. Um, think this is my last question. What do you think plan review will look like in 3 to 5 years?
When it comes to like our partnership and where I'm going to say where permitting should go, I want to see so much more happen. Um, we mentioned a little bit about one of the biggest holdup is incomplete and error prone submissions. A developer should be able to submit plans and have them automatically checked before they even get to the permitting office and spit it back and say, you got these 10 things that are missing. Be able to automatically pre-check that, which we're working on, ironically. And then I want to go deeper into the engineering aspects of it. We talked about the water agency in Maryland. That portion of that plan review has got nothing to do with the developer. It's got to do with the greater network, right? How much sewage can this system take? How much water is it going to need? Do I need another treatment plant? How wide do the roads have to be? Do I need to hire more maintenance crews to do more repairs on the roads? Can the bridges handle it? Do the bridges need to be repaired? I want to go deeper into the entire process of the whole design, construct, manage process across the board. If you get into the overall dollars of infrastructure, planning is probably the least expensive part, followed by construction. These things are here for 50 to 100 years. The management of these items, these infrastructure items, could be 150 years. So that represents almost 90% of the overall lifetime cost of an asset. That's what we want to get into.
Sure. I'd also add on both sides, both the applicant and the reviewer, I think it'll be a better experience. I think on the applicant side, there'll be more consistency, there'll be more transparency. They'll be able to understand when the permit's going to be issued to them and allow them to really work on the development, their ROI, et cetera. I also think then on the reviewer side, they'll really be able to focus on the outliers. A lot of that repetitive work will be done for them. They'll still be in charge, but they'll be able to work that much quicker through the reviews.
So just to end, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to building apartments?
I'd recommend you spend a little time and ask yourself, what is it costing me to do nothing? And I think you'll be shocked. Then ask yourself, what does it cost for me to get into a technology to eliminate the do nothing factor? And I think you'll notice that the ROI is spectacular.
Sure. One thing I'd add also is make sure you get buy-in from the plan reviewers. They're the ones that are ultimately going to be using this technology. They need to be able to trust it, to understand it, and to be able to use it to its fullest. Well, thank you all for joining. I hope this was exciting for you to understand really a little bit more about the permitting industry. We tried to make it a little bit interesting and explain how it works. Plan review is a process that has a lot of steps. It is complicated. It's always in the news. It seems to be more and more. There's a lot that the plan reviewers can do, but a lot of that is just out of their control. But with the use of technology, hopefully it can become more and more quicker, more seamless. So with that, Gary, thank you very much for joining
Absolutely.
us.
Thank you. I'm really excited about this partnership and it's going to be awesome.
Terrific. Thank you again for joining.